You wanted to be a hero? Then act like it. I came here to destroy a man, not some cowardly dog. I said a podcast, hero.
The return of Overtkill. Welcome everybody to another episode of Spawnography, a podcast where we go arc by arc through all of Todd McFarlane's greatest creation, Spawn. I'm your host, Pierce Lyden, here with...
I'm your co-host, George Marston. I guess I don't know why I paused in between my first and last name. It's a me, Overtkill is what I was thinking.
How are you doing, George?
Well, I'm psyched up for the return of everybody's favorite cyborg assassin from Sicily, and I'm doing pretty good. I'm about to sign a lease to move into a new place. And, it's going to be great. So,
Penthouse overlooking
happening.
Spawn Valley?
Yes, actually, isn't that so weird that I found the exact alley? I think in one of the issues it tells you where it is. No, it's just a place across town from where I am now, and it's really close to my favorite Indian restaurant, so I'm very excited about that. And it's also walking distance to a Taco Bell.
Hey, how close is it to a Waffle House?
Also, almost walking distance. It's
great.
about a 1-minute drive from a Waffle House.
We keep our priorities in check here at Spawnography.
Right. I love I've said it before, Waffle House is my favorite restaurant. I dream of the Demolition Man future where everything is Taco Bell, but instead it's Waffle House. Waffle House is the only restaurant.
Do you still have to do whatever you have to do with those conch shells?
The 3 seashells. I don't know. I hope not, because I don't know how you do it. I'll be walking around like an incel with an unwiped crack.
I've been filling in. I've been talking to folks on the Spawn subreddits and through our many forms of social media, but I've been
the Spawn community, or as I would like to call it, the Spawn community. No,
we'll work on that.
Yeah, that's not going to work.
But I've been asked a few times if I'm, filling out my collection or if I'm trying to do a full run, and I am, because I like collecting things. It's really fun. I haven't collected a full run since I finished my Darkhawk collection, and that was probably like 2015, 2016. There were a few low print run issues in there somewhere, so excited for another run that has a ton of low print run stuff. Nice. I'm really excited to spend $40 on issue 243 of Spawn. But I did get a big 90. I won some lot of like 90 issues between 1 and 116. So I have a lot of stuff that hopefully I'm hoping to bring to some local comic shows and trade some low number issues for some higher ones and see what's up, even if they're newer ones, just to start filling out from either end. And, doing the show has actually gotten me reading the current Spawn comics. So just at the time of recording, 351 has just come out, and the final page, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, George, is a red-haired lady who looks a little familiar. But
her name's going to be Angelique.
I think it's actually Bangela.
Bangela, that's right. Angela Bobangela. It's funny, I thought you were going to say Angela, but we know it's going to be, her name's going to be, it's going to be Tiffany. Her name's going to be, what's another name that a girl would have?
Well, so the interesting thing about current Spawn continuity is that all the angels and demons have lost their powers. Nyx is the new, Queen of Hell? Whatever. Spawn doesn't have any powers. The vampires are taking over.
Wow.
Spawn has kind of become a Blade comic.
That's cool. Well, I can't wait to be talking about that in 7 years.
When we're 80, we're gonna be talking about these issues, and it's gonna be great.
Yeah. It's funny. I think that's the thing about starting a comic from number one. Spawn, there's an advantage that, especially if you blast through it, it's conceivable you can read 300 issues and catch up to the current comic. But if you want to read Fantastic Four and you think about starting at Fantastic Four number one from 1961, that comic is really hard to read by modern standards. Even though it's a beautiful work of art, I think there's something to be said about also consuming the comics that are contemporary to the time you're in, because they're speaking to you. And that helps you learn and understand and contextualize the older issues.
Rory McConville is writing Spawn currently, or just King Spawn. I think he's writing Spawn. Sorry to Rory McConville if you're not writing Spawn. I'm not going to look it up. I don't have the internet. It does have a much more modern pacing than even these issues do.
Yeah.
I do kind of like that. Also, I think this might be some of Brett Booth's best art ever. Brett Booth, not a guy that I've typically liked in the past, and his sort of scratchiness seems a little cleaned up here. I think he drew the Flash for a little while, and I was like, I can't read this book. It doesn't look good. Oh, he also drew Red Hood and the Outlaws, which is what this does sometimes very much look like in character design. Like there's some characters I'm like, those are the Teen Titans, kind of.
Yeah, I'm interested to check it out, because anytime someone tells me that an artist that I'm not particularly a huge fan of is doing great work on a title, I always want to dig in, because I would love to be surprised and impressed. And I have all the faith in the Spawn universe that's possible.
I will say that I think that Todd is very good at picking artists that draw a good Spawn. I think
that's
Spawn
fair.
never looks bad. Obviously, it has a great costume, but
that is the key.
Yeah,
you got to make the star look good.
So,
and honestly, that's probably what the arc we're about to talk about does best too, because it is, when we talk about decompression, 4 issues. It feels like he wanted 2 extra pages per issue for 2 issues and stretched it into 4 issues to make it fit.
This arc, it's funny. Again, at the time of recording, we've just released episode 3 of our show, and to have Overtkill come back is very funny.
Right.
This does feel like the sequel to that arc.
Very
and
much so.
It does feel like, oh, I can just spend more time doing other stuff. I just rewatched Batman and Batman Returns, the Burton films.
Good choices.
One thing, sure, except that I think that both of those movies, well, more so the first one, suffers from kind of the same thing that this arc suffers from, which is you don't really spend a ton of time with the hero, and you spend a lot of time doing business with other stuff. Like, there's so many just like conversations in rooms with people who that are not superheroes in the first Batman.
Maybe it's nostalgia for me, but that's the first pop culture event that I remember from my childhood. And to this day, that's really the only Batman movie that I always think is really great to watch. I'm really not a fan of the Nolan ones anymore.
The thing is, it's 2 hours and 20 minutes long. That's a long time where you go like a solid half hour with like not really any Bruce Wayne or Batman at one point.
Never noticed it as a kid is a thing, because there's so many good performances in it. Jack Nicholson,
Nicholson is great.
Robert
Wool of Arliss fame, obviously.
Correct.
Yeah, Robert Wool is pretty great. He is kind of an incel in it.
He's a little weird.
He's pretty upset with getting friend zoned by Vicky Vale, and she's like,
when I was a kid, though, that movie knocked my fucking socks off. When I was totally 5 years old, that summer I had a Batman symbol shaved in my head, in my hair, because
that's sick.
It was awesome.
Would you, if the Spawn movie was better, would you have gotten the Spawn
logo? I was about 17 when that movie came out. 16 or 17, I think. Maybe I think that's around the time. Definitely was a
97?
teenager in high school. 97. Oh, so I was a little younger than I thought. I was more like 14 or 15 when that came out. It hit okay, but by that point, that's a tough age for a movie that doesn't quite nail it.
Yeah.
When you're like first starting to be skeptical of shit. Because like as a kid, you enjoy anything that's a spectacle, really. There's stuff that
That's
really
true.
sticks with you and that you enjoy into adulthood, like Batman for me. Spawn, I was not quite the right age to love it that way. I did see it like twice in the theater though. And I thought the Angela cameo was fucking sick. I was like, oh shit. But I thought it was pretty. I mean, I'll be honest. I thought it was good. I haven't revisited it very much. Revisited it.
We will. Once we
Yeah,
get
absolutely.
when we get the right guest on to talk about it, I think we'll revisit it. Maybe we'll do it as like a winter special every December for
We'll
Christmas.
rewatch
We'll have
Spawn.
different guests. We'll rewatch Spawn.
Is it
and
a
we'll have
Christmas
different
movie?
guests come on. Nope.
Okay, well it is now. Spawn's
Yeah.
mess. for Todd so loved the world.
True, and also we're gonna get to a like Spawn Christmas
Yeah.
issue.
A very Spawn
think-
Christmas.
I think it's in the 30s. I forget a little bit. It's a lot of work for
Oh
one
yeah,
gag.
there is. That's
Yeah.
right.
We're not
A
that
very
far out
Todd
from it.
McFarlane Christmas.
Anyway, let's get into this arc. I think it's time. We've been shooting the shit for long enough. Sorry to the kids. I'm going to get into the credits for The Hunt Part 1. This is Spawn number 21. Story and art by Todd McFarlane. Inks by Mark Pennington. Copy editor and letterer Tom Warzakowski. Color by Steve Oliff and Oleoptics. Oleoptics is Tracy Anderson, Stacey Cox, Patty Stratton Jordan, Kirk Mobert, Marie St. Clair, Mo Sampson, Quinn Suplee, Christ Wolf, Breck Blackford, Candace McCaslin, Robin Robertson, Blair Root, and William Zindel. And Director of Creative Development is Terry Fitzgerald. Graphics Coordinator, Julia Simmons. Dedicated to Mike Grell.
Mike Grell, of course.
Mike Grell of
Wonderful
Warlord
artist.
fame.
Warlord fame. And in the 70s, did the absolute horniest superhero costume designs of all time for the Legion of Superheroes.
I think also at this time he's doing an image book. Shadow
Okay.
something.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm gonna look that up because now I want to know.
Great.
Mike Grell Image Comics. This is Shaman's Tears. That's what it is. Shaman's
yes.
Tears.
Yes.
Which then people got really upset that it eventually got canceled by Image because I don't think it sold very well, and Mike Grell fans were pretty upset. So we're coming out of Spawn Batman, which ended with a batarang to the face, and we are sort of panning down onto New York City, and something's happening. It's not entirely clear, but then we see a shoelace.
Yeah.
And
there's one of the alley guys is kind of busting Spawn's balls as he's lacing up Spawn's face with a shoelace for a look that will become iconic, I think, which is Spawn with the lace down the middle of his face. A look that the comic itself will forget to include in at least half of the scenes in this story. We get a big close-up of Spawn's face. It's really cool. I like the knot hanging off the top of his head. That's pretty gnarly.
But the top's on.
Yeah. He says he ran into some bozo in black. Bozo is what he calls him. And he could be talking about either Batman or Harry Houdini or both. It is a quantum singularity in which the plots of those two stories are essentially identical. In both of them, Spawn teams up with either Batman or Harry Houdini to stop a former Soviet agent from blowing up New York City with a nuclear weapon. Pretty much exactly.
I think
the same.
And the editor's note says that like specifically refers to issues 19 and 20.
Not out yet, is what it says.
Not out yet. which that
We
does get
went over
that
that
does
at
get
one
brought up.
point.
Yeah, that does get brought up in the letters columns of these issues, since these all came out before 19 and 20 came out at all.
Mm.
And essentially, after the comic book bubble burst a little bit after 1993, print runs went down on a lot of books because distributors were really upset about late books. They were saying like late books are the reason that like there's a lot of unused product, and we can't house all this stuff and blah blah blah. And Todd actually explains all of it. Basically, it's like, fine, you don't want late books, I'll put out what I have. 21 is ready to go. 19 and 20 are not finished when Spawn Batman needs more time. So he puts out 21.
Ever the businessman.
Some of the fans get a little upset about it, but he kind of says, like, listen, in 1994, Image Comics has been on time with like 98% of our books. We've had a couple of books that were returnable because they were late, but we've been like one of the top publishers in terms of being on time. So the business side of things is always kind of in the background of all of this. It doesn't usually affect the story all that much.
It does
But in
here
this
as
case,
well, though. There will be a
yeah.
lot of Vito the Gravano.
In mine, it's still Tony Twistelli.
That's right.
But he does mention in the back matter that exactly who he named it after. So I'm sure that
really
one of
shot
these.
himself in the dick like 5 times with that.
But also, there's a few other references in these books that we'll get to of guys who didn't sue him, but probably could have. I don't know.
Yeah. There's a lot of names and references. What we're talking about, of course, and we went over this in depth in previous issues, but the TLDR is Todd McFarlane named the character Tony Twistelli, the mobster, after a Canadian hockey player. I think he was a Canadian hockey player. Named he was definitely a hockey player. Named Tony Twist, who really didn't like the stuff that his character that he was named after, without being asked, was up to. And he sued, won a big settlement years down the road, and it affected a lot of shit behind the scenes for Todd McFarlane for a really long time. One of several lawsuits that would and did. And here in the what I'm reading from is the Spawn Compendium, Volume 1, which does have his name changed. They changed his name in reprintings from Tony Twist to Vito the Gravano. Gravano, of course, also being a reference to a real mobster, Sammy the Bull Gravano.
Editor Pierce here. We mean Vito Don Dracula Gravano, not the Grave. Thanks. Bye.
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
fine.
I mean, it's just a last name at least this time.
Yeah.
And he was convicted of murder, so it's not like he can claim it's slander.
True. So Spawn's in the alley with Bobby. Bobby stitched him up. I love the shoelace face. I think it's great. I think it's the second most iconic thing after his mask.
I think so too. I think it makes his unmasked face look cooler.
Yeah. And to everybody that's like, "Ooh, why didn't he just use his powers to fix his face?" His face looks like shit anyway. Why waste his power meter on fixing his face?
Plus, he gets to hang out with Bobby. One thing that is funny about these pages is throughout this issue, a lot of the emphasized words, because I guess of Spawn's speech and the way it's portrayed in fonts, but even with other characters, the emphasized words, at least in the reprints, are all different colors. So, like, Spawn says,
Yeah, they're different colors for me too.
I used to know what good and bad meant. Now everything's screwed up. And in those sentences, good, bad, and everything are all colored. They're like orange, purple, and green. So it's just a weird lettering quirk that goes throughout this issue, but I don't think the others.
Sometimes Orzechowski does it every once in a while, where he'll do that, and I have to imagine that he's just bored.
Maybe trying to make just walls of text look more interesting.
I mean, there's a lot of text in this arc, and we talk about. I think decompression became something to really talk about more in the 2010s more than anything else.
Yeah,
where
but this
people are like, "Oh my god, every issue is just like a guy sits in a chair and has breakfast and like tells you his whole life story in captions." And this is just as bad in my opinion.
There's so much repetition in this arc of like reiterating plot points and conversations and retelling previous plot points from different characters' perspectives that it almost feels like it starts to almost feel like a Rashomon type story where you're getting one story from a bunch of different angles, not intentionally, not in an artistic like choice way, but just in the sense of that there's so much repetition, it starts to feel that way. And it also starts to feel almost like a cubist Spawn story where like you get to see every angle all at once because you get to see it from Wanda's perspective and Terry's perspective and Spawn's perspective and Gravano's perspective, and all these events are repeated over and over. It's like on a TV show, and it's kind of a cliche to compare comics and TV or whatever at this point.
They're both episodic storytelling.
Right. Well, that's why it happens. And to that end, in a TV show, especially like Prestige TV, for example, you'll see a situation that then gets reacted to and that ripples out through the story, but you don't necessarily see that action reiterated and reacted to over and over again the way that you kind of get to do in this arc.
In the slow moving plot of this issue, Spawn is going to leave Bobby, and we're eventually going to transition to a scene with Jason Wynn. And the last time we saw Jason Wynn was the Grant Morrison arc with Greg Capullo on art, where we met Anti-Spawn for the first time. And here's where we're going to see a little bit of the fallout from that, because Jason Wynn disappeared for a couple of days.
Yeah.
And now the story kind of has to reckon with that. This arc does feel a little bit like Todd having to reset after the Coco Swiss.
The Coco Swiss.
Because he didn't necessarily intend for any of that stuff to happen, but he wanted it to happen for almost business reasons, but also, to bump up the brand a little bit. And now he's got to like refit that back into what his stories are. We've talked a lot about how he doesn't necessarily care about the larger story. Malbolgia doesn't really come up at all in this arc, and it's another street level story against mobsters.
The clown gets mentioned, but
yeah,
and yeah, there's a little bit of weird incongruity with Jason Wynn. The last time we saw him, he was turned into the anti-spawn through elemental heavenly fire, and the last scene of him in that story was the angels who had abducted him, much like aliens, and imbued him with this fire. Pouring on more because he had failed at killing Spawn. So what that seems to imply here is that he was then returned to Earth and he'll become a weapon again at some point.
Right. Or they just threw him away and they're going to not worry about it.
The basic gist of this story, so that we don't avoid repeating it over and over through this rundown, because that would be very easy, as that's kind of what happens in this comic, is Jason Wynn finds out that it's not Terry Fitzgerald who's been stealing his guns and his records. That's actually been Spawn. And that will lead to a confrontation between Wynn's agents, Terry Fitzgerald, who Wynn still wants to frame for the frame. I don't know why I said frame. He still wants to frame for stealing all the shit. And Vito Gravano's mafia guys, who are also looking for Spawn, and it will also lead to the first meeting between Sam and Twitch and Spawn, as all of these points converge.
And Terry and Spawn.
Yes, Terry and Spawn. Did I say Al and Spawn? I meant Terry and Spawn.
No. Terry and Spawn, but also Sam and Twitch and Spawn.
Sam and Twitch and Terry and Spawn. It's one of those T-shirts. Sam and Twitch and Terry and Spawn. Would actually
you know what?
Would wear.
All right, merch idea.
Yeah.
Well, but it has to be Sam and Twitch and Terry and Spawn and Wanda.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. So it really, to harken back to that TV metaphor, it feels like that season finale where all these points finally come together. The problem is that we get to visit all of those points in each issue. And so we just see the same like 5 pages of action 4 times in each issue. and it gets a little moldy by the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say artistically too, Mark Pennington was Todd's inker for a lot of Spider-Man. I like it. I like Todd inking himself more,
Yeah,
but
definitely.
it's clear these guys have worked together and that he does understand the assignment.
The splash pages work better to me than the sequentials in a lot of places. And the other thing that I like about these issues is actually the coloring works a lot better than it has in some previous cases in this issue. I think a lot more consistent than Spawn Batman through this story. And that
That's
may
really
say something
interesting
about how that
because
was
after that
finished.
first splash of Shoelace Space Spawn, are your colors like real weird when we first see Bobby?
No,
I have the compendium somewhere. I feel like I can
maybe.
compare.
I've got after the first no. Well, here's what I've got right here. I'll show you.
Oh, they fixed them.
Okay. So
They
there's a
fixed them.
coloring
So
error.
yeah, there's like on mine, I don't know how well you'll see it, but they're like really like look at that.
Way more washed out, yeah.
Yeah, super washed out. Now that could be a printing error actually.
They're still a little washy on this page, but not that bad.
Yeah.
I mean, this whole sequence is a little bit brighter. It looks like it's taking place in broad daylight, which is a little funny to see Spawn just chilling in the alley in the middle of the, broad daylight with Bobby.
That's the other thing that is wild about modern Spawn is like it's just daytime.
Yeah,
Just like
that's
stuff
weird.
happening in day. There's straight up
Because
superhero
I
stuff
guess
happening in daytime.
there's vampires at night. So we find out that Wynn disappeared and reappeared, and he still wants to blame Terry Fitzgerald for stealing his files and his guns, even though his agents are giving him conclusive proof that's not what happened. Meanwhile, Terry's getting chewed out by...
He keeps getting like accosted by these same government guys over and over again because they're just like, there's something going on here. We're going to find out what it is. Like, why do you keep looking into stuff?
Right, they're trying to frame him still, I guess. And he checks in with Wanda. Boy.
I don't know that anybody has ever answered the phone like that.
Wanda confirmed bisexual sitting in this pose.
Also with that outfit probably too.
Yeah, exactly. It's even it's bisexual mood colors. I'm gonna go ahead and confirm that and move on. Terry's stuck at the office and he's kind of worried about these agents. We cut to Sam and Twitch, and Sam has unfortunately crossed the line from good cop to bad apple because he's beating the crap out of an alley guy looking for information about Spawn. Twitch is kind of like, well, I guess I'll be looking for a new job tomorrow.
Yeah, this feels not in line with the other characterizations of Sam and Twitch that we've gotten. Not so much Twitch, mostly Sam. Where we understand that they're like good cops that are trying to get shit done. Is it just frustration boiling over?
I guess, but you'd think that could have come out when it seems like a strange incongruity that his rage would be taken out on this guy and not actually on Billy Kincaid. But his rage may be that Billy Kincaid is now beyond the reach of the long arm of the law because he's in hell. He basically beats the hell out of the guy and breaks his hand by stepping on it. And at the same time, in another alley elsewhere, Spawn is being told there's trouble again because some Nazi skinhead is looking for him, sent by the mafia to show everyone that Spawn's a pussy. Spawn has a confrontation with this guy. He grabs him and digs his fingers so deep into his flesh that it pierces his bone. Can't say I blame him. He goes, "Cripes, my arm." He throws him into a big pile of junk, and the guy's yelling, "They're going to kill you, you crazy bugger. You hear? You're dead meat." And Spawn, in this sort of weirdly drawn sequence, in this bottom panel on this one page, that's kind of tucked away in the corner, starts to pull off his mask, and we get another splash page close up of his face where the guy says, "You're dead meat," and then Spawn pulls off his mask and says, "You're damn right I am."
He also unhinges his jaw,
This
right?
splash page is bonkers. It looks awesome, and it also is sort of like, yeah, he's got a huge wide mouth. It definitely looks like Todd McFarlane was like, got to draw the bottom of the mouth without really
Yeah,
thinking
where am I going to fit it?
I can't have, it's too hard to draw behind the hand. He drew those teeth and really liked the way it looked and didn't want to, kill that little darling. He's got Spawn's hands peeling through the symbiote neural parasite of his mask and like coming down like the cheese on a pizza in an 80s TV commercial.
Pretty good.
And it looks great. It looks cool and weird, and like the jaw doesn't make any fucking sense at all unless Spawn's jaw is like attached to his neck and he's like,
considering though that he is undead, sort of.
yeah,
like,
I mean,
I don't know. I feel like that's possible.
yeah, I don't mind it. I think it looks cool. It's exaggerated, but it's that sort of, it's that sort of manga-esque exaggeration where it's breaking the anatomy to sell a mood and a point. And I like when comics do that sometimes.
Yeah.
The
other thing I really like about the shoelace face version of Spawn is that Todd loves like just doing eyes and mouth on Spawn, but now he kind of has to do the shoelace as well.
Yeah, he does.
And it adds
cool.
an interesting, cool element that I think
it makes
really
his
fun.
Plain face look more interesting to me.
Yeah.
I like on the next page when the Nazi skinhead guy. I like when he says Christ and Spawn goes, not even close. I like that. And then so the guy admits that it's Vito Gravano, and Spawn goes, that fat ass? How many of his whipping boys do I need to spank? I don't know if that's the tone it was meant to be written in, but
a little playful.
Yeah. How many of his whipping boys do I need to spank? Pulls on his mask for that one.
So, yeah, I mean, I do like that Spawn's becoming a lot more self-assured, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It's better than the opening issues where he's like, my wife, what am I doing? Where am I going? What's happening?
He passes out every time he uses his powers.
I mean, in this case, he's kind of figured out that he doesn't need to use his powers a little bit, and that he's just kind of super strong and a superhero and just does superhero stuff. He's kind of a dick about it, but
he's also he's super scary. He likes it. He likes that Batman terrifying element, but it's like instead of I am the night, it's like I am fucking dead, which is what he says. He says, "You tell Mr. Gravano if he thinks he can do any worse to me than this, I'll be waiting. And tell him not to take too long. I'm not patient. I'll visit him again soon."
Yeah, so we're gonna move over to Tony Twist / Vito Gravano, kind of figuring out what's going on. Like he's getting the report about this fight with Spawn, and this is where he decides that he wants to frame Terry Fitzgerald.
This is where he's getting fed information by the CIA and the FBI that in addition to Spawn being the one who messed with Jason Wynn, he's also the guy, in addition to Terry Fitzgerald being the guy who messed with Jason Wynn, Terry is also the guy who messed up Vito Gravano's office and fought Overtkill the first time. So he's being basically framed as Spawn to both Jason Wynn or by Jason Wynn to the mob. And the reason why is obvious. He just wants it to clean itself up. Vito Gravano says, get me everything you can on him. They also refer to the events of the Violator Limited series, which we will be covering.
We will. We're going to cover it because it happened at the same time as this, more or less. So we will be covering it next episode. It's an Alan Moore. I don't know. It's kind of fun.
Yeah,
Alan Moore will be back in about for issue 37, I believe, and that'll be introduction of a new character. So there's also a reference to Youngblood Strike File number 4,
yeah, there sure is.
which is another appearance of Overtkill.
We don't
And
necessarily need to read that. It gets
You
referenced again at the end of the story.
Yeah, it doesn't
We're
matter.
certainly not going to do an episode on it, is what I mean to say.
I'll say
There's
this.
no need
I
for
don't
that.
want to cover any Youngblood stuff. However, we'll have a Patreon or something. Or if we have a
Yeah.
guest who really wants to cover it, then I will absolutely cover it.
Never say never.
You're not missing anything by not reading Youngblood Strike File number 4.
Yeah.
So
we get the
don't worry about it.
We get the talking heads again next. It's kind of interesting. They're talking about Jason Wynn, who is, of course, a very top secret, extremely powerful CIA agent who has basically, they're saying, pretty much fiat to do whatever he wants with his intelligence agency. He barely even answers to the president. But there's news that he disappeared and then reappeared. They're all kind of asking the same questions about it, like what could have happened. The reactionary guy kind of goes off on a conspiracy rant saying, like, where do they take him? Kind of brushing a little too close to the truth, which I don't think that's a message. I just think that's kind of like Todd being clever.
A broken clock is right twice a day, right?
I guess. I'm still not going to try and tell my time with it. Spawn's back in the alley. We get a cool splash kind of it's not even a splash, but the end of the issue, once they decide to send in Overtkill again, the end of the first part, is Spawn just laying in the trash. And I kind of like that drawing of him. It's very simple and clean.
I do too. It's crazy. I mean, it's crazy that we talked about that for as long as we did, considering that's all that's also going to happen in the next 3 issues.
Pretty much. It's all that confrontation building.
Yeah.
Issue 22, Spawn confronts the Vito Gravano's accountant, kills a couple of his guys using his chains, lets the costume react. We see that he's getting more comfortable letting that happen and understanding how and when his costume will intervene so he doesn't have to use his powers, and also when he wants to use his combat. We're still in the era of very iconic Spawn art where a lot of these images and pages were getting pulled out and used regularly to advertise Spawn or in articles about Spawn. See a lot of this art in Wizard magazine and stuff like that.
Yeah. So we're into Spawn number 22, The Hunt Part 2, story and art by Todd McFarlane. Copy editor and letters by Tom Orzechowski. Color by Steve Oliff and Ollie Optics. Ollie Optics, Tracy Anderson, Stacey Cox, Patty Stratton, Jordan, Kirk Mobert, Marie St. Clair, Mo Sampson, Quinn Suplee, Christ Wolf, Breck Blackford, Candace McCaslin, Robin Robertson, Leia Rude, and William Zindell. Special thanks to Greg Capullo.
Great.
I love the opening scene with the accountant. The accountant's name is Joe Sakic. Joe Sakic was a Quebec Nordique as well, just like Tony Twist. He does spell it different. He spells it Sasic.
Yeah, he spells it strangely.
Yeah, Joe Sakic was Sakic.
He spells it. I think they corrected the spelling here.
Oh, really?
Maybe. This says, well, let's see.
I think it's inconsistent, actually. I think it's wrong.
It's spelled Sacic on the first page, and then later it is spelled Sakic. It says, like, Joe Sakic will be found with his... Yeah, later it's spelled Sakic when it says his body will be found on the George Washington Bridge with his hands and feet viciously severed, decapitated. Even his genitals will be missing. The police will conduct a full investigation, but in the absence of anything identifiable about the body, they'll have to close the case of John Doe 1994-714. Such is the life of a trusted employee of Vito Gravano. And of course, the thing that's landing him in such a terrible fate, fed to the fishes, is that he hands over all the records on all of Vito Gravano's files to Spawn.
Todd
Incriminating
loves
stuff.
files. I think he thinks that everybody was keeping a lot more files than I've ever kept in my entire life.
Files are a big... Well, considering how much he's getting into business at this point, he's probably fucking drowning in files at this time.
True.
He's probably looking all around and be like, I got so many fucking files.
I do love how self-assured Spawn is as stuff's happening. He's getting attacked by machine guns and he's just blocking it with like he's not even thinking about it. The chains are just doing it. He's letting it happen. He's like, hell yeah, let's go. He destroys these two guys with a desk, which rules.
Yeah.
Smashes them.
And then, and you know, if you think that it's unrealistic that Todd McFarlane drew and wrote Vito Gravano keeping incriminating files about himself, bear in mind that Todd McFarlane published the origins of Vito Gravano's original namesake, Tony Twist, in that issue. So he was keeping incriminating records in public. Ultimately, the next page, the next little sequence here is really weird. We zoom in.
What movie did Todd just watch with
when did B movie come out?
B movie, yeah, it was
probably 2000.
I guess The Fly, but like since this is a fly, but
yeah, but it's like a big zoom out from a very close up shot of like the different segments of a fly's segmented eye, pulling out to where we see the fly is sitting on a donut that's about to be eaten by Sam, and it luckily flies away before he houses that wolf. He wolfs it down.
And we get some real cartooning by this lumpy face that Sam's got.
He looks like if you took Fred Flintstone's face out of a comic with
rocks.
Or like if you like, have you ever seen like a newsprint cartoon and like put silly putty on it and then you lift the silly putty away and it picks up the image? It looks like that. Yeah. It looks like Fred Flintstone, but like then he stretched it. It looks like Mac Tonight eating that donut.
And then we probably get my least favorite page of the entire 4 issues, which is just Jason Wynn sitting in a... Sam and Twitch are chatting.
Yeah, basically trying to figure out what they're going to do next to find Spawn. And someone calls them the Ren and Stimpy of New York's finest. Calls them out for beating up the homeless guy.
Yeah. And then Sam throws up in
spits in his coffee.
Spits in his coffee? Like, jeez.
Yeah, I guess to get revenge for calling him out for police brutality.
Or maybe he really just hates Ren and Stimpy.
Yeah. So next page is Jason Wynn. I mean, if it didn't have a wall of text on it, it's kind of a neat page.
It is, but I think if it didn't have a wall of text, then why is it a whole page? It's a man sitting at a desk with his hands like together as like the sunlight comes in, and Todd waxes poetic about the sun, and
it does look like the size of that window probably changes based on how much text needs to be on the page next to it.
For sure. And it's referencing again. It's repeating that he was gone for 2 days. We can move on. Like it's just that again. We've talked about how Todd does the Stan Lee every issue might be your first, so I want to catch you up kind of thing. He's stopped doing it with Spawn himself.
Yeah,
especially in these issues. Spawn's origin doesn't really get explained at all.
We get a little bit of my wife, but
very little, and actually enough that I'm like, this is fine.
Yeah. It's repeating
the rest of it is like so repetitive that I'm like, people might think that this is a comic only about these other people.
Yeah. The one bit of text I like on this page is the very end where it says reputation, power, these are the building blocks of madness. Which, like, if you look at TikTok and Clout Hunters, that's correct.
Jason Wynn, the
Cloud
original
hunters.
Elon Musk.
Yeah, that's wild. We catch up with Terry again. He gets a rat that calls him, "Dear Fitzy, you're a dead rat. Your friends from the mafia."
When you say he gets a rat, he doesn't like catch a rat. A rat is sent to the office in like a gift box with a knife stuck through it. Terry wants to protect Wanda, but he's still trying to like find things out, which seems like a bad idea.
Yeah.
Considering that he's been menaced to this point. And, he gets the dead rat. He thinks, he feels that things are about to escalate. We get a sick splash of Spawn right after this.
Sitting in
an alley throne, which rules. Reading a file, as one does.
Yeah, just hanging out with his files.
And realizing that Tony Twist/Vito Gravano thinks that he's Terry Fitzgerald.
Yes, thinks that Terry is Spawn.
Terry's in danger.
And so the rest of this issue is really building to that, with Vito Gravano saying that Overtkill is back in town. We get a very cool splash page of Overtkill all kind of like disassembled and wired up in their headquarters. I really like that page where they're basically saying that he's ready to go. They're sending him out against Terry. Terry escapes barely from his house, where the mafia and FBI or CIA,
they've kind of converged.
They converge at the same time, and they start having a gunfight. Terry bails. The sequencing and geography of this is weird because it kind of starts to become apparent that they live really close to Spawn's alley. But it looks like they live on like Long Island or something,
We know that they live in Queens.
I know they do.
So here's my thought. I live in Queens, and there are parts of Queens that are pretty suburban.
Yeah, of course.
And there are also parts of Queens that are more like Manhattan, where there are alleyways and things. Theoretically, it's never been established that his alley is actually in Manhattan.
Right. Well, at one point they did say where it was. There was a point where they said where his like the intersection of his alley or whatever. But this is very fluid. In the first issue, they were reading the fucking LA Times.
Well, yeah. So really all bets are off.
So, but here, one of the alley guys runs up and tells him, "Al, it's just like you said, they're over on 6th. So wherever 6th is in Queens, New York City, USA, Spawn's alley is within like noticeable distance of it. It's iffy geography."
Okay, so here's what I'll say. Terry is here with these 2 dead CIA guys who get killed by the mobsters who come to also kill him. And they realize that, like, oh, we can kill the CIA guys because mobsters hate CIA guys.
Right.
But they're natural enemies.
Right.
It does start with hours later. So my thought is that where Terry and Wanda live is Bayside. It is like far out, almost Long Island, Queens.
Yeah, it does say hours later.
And
it reads like it's happening at the same time, though.
The thing is, I would agree with you if the captions weren't so fucking long that like it slows down how much. It took me hours to read this page, and I didn't really learn anything new. So hours later, I picked the comic back up, and we were back in Spawn's alley.
So what happens here is that Spawn is about to go save Terry from Overtkill because Terry has run into the city fleeing these people. I guess that's what happened. Is that Terry ran into the city fleeing the mafia. Overtkill is chasing him. Spawn goes to help Terry, but as he's about to, we finally get the first moment where Spawn and Sam and Twitch come face to face as Twitch puts his gun to Spawn's head and says, "Don't fucking move," basically.
Yep. And then we get like the final panel, cool, Overtkill, glowing eye, great. And that will bring us to Spawn number 23, The Hunt Part 3, story and art by Todd McFarlane. Special thanks to Greg Capullo. Copy editor and letters by Tom Warzikowski. Colors by Steve Oliff and Ollie Optics. The Ollie Optics crew is the same. This issue is dedicated to the memory of Don Thompson. By the way, the last issue was dedicated to Frank Miller. I forgot to mention that.
Oh, wow. What a great dedication.
So like the guy he just worked with and also is clearly like pretty into at this point. Todd seemingly thinks that the best comics writer is Frank Miller, which I think is also why he wants to ground Spawn so much, is to do like his take a little bit, you know?
Don Thompson was one of the, I think Don and Maggie Thompson were the longtime editors of the Comics Buyer's Guide. And Don Thompson passed away around the time of that issue. They got a dedication earlier on as well.
This would be 1994, right around also when Jack Kirby died, and also during the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Wow.
Because it gets brought up by Terry Fitzgerald, big hockey fan, a bunch of times in blah, blah, blah. His little section where he gets to write whatever he wants.
Yes. So the first page of this issue, rather than opening with a splash page in this issue, we have one of the earlier examples of what is now a pretty standard practice of a bunch of headshots of the main characters with little descriptions about where they are in the plot and who they are. And I have to say, I like it better than trying to do this over and over throughout every issue. And yet that still happens somewhat.
100%. Again, it's sort of the, what if this is somebody's first issue? They got to know what's going on. They only heard from their friend that Spawn is cool.
Intro page, way better for it.
I mean, the splash pages are doing the same thing. And my pushback on what you're saying is, at least the splash pages look cool.
That's true. Well, let me rephrase. This device works better if you don't also then repeat all this information over and over again throughout the comic.
Yeah. What's interesting is in the back matter of the previous issue, they call issue 23 the conclusion. Which is not the case. Maybe it's
because of the...
Todd never refers to it as the conclusion. He always says issues 21 to 24 are an arc.
Maybe it's because of the weirdness with the order of release.
That said, I think that Todd makes up for some headshots and gives us a great 2-page Overtkill spread. I will say this, Overtkill to me, I think I said it in episode 3 when we talked about the payback arc, that I was like, whenever Overtkill, he's fine, I guess.
Got a lot of generic 90s shit going on.
I'm sort of understanding why you would love to draw this character when he gets to be massive. Yeah. And it definitely calls back to Todd's Hulk, obviously, right? The only character who's like of similar size to Overtkill, similar dynamism. You can do similar like kind of horror and bring that similar kind of intensity to the book.
He almost has a body horror element, being a cyborg that gets taken apart and stuff.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. And also, one thing I do like about this arc is I do like to hang out with Terry more. I like to get to know him a little bit more.
It does flesh out Terry as a character a little bit. Once again, we're into another arc where there just aren't really many women besides Wanda and Terry's secretary, like getting to do anything.
There aren't, and really all that Wanda does is answer a phone and hold a baby. So
yeah, we get grandma again, but nonetheless, this is a really cool Overtkill double page spread. I love again the big giant Todd McFarlane patented like front and center hand.
Yep, sick. Love his gold chains.
Yeah, he got like that gold chains. Got them dookie ropes. He's beating the shit out of Terry Fitzgerald because he doesn't believe that Terry isn't Spawn. Spawn, meanwhile, is being held up by Sam and Twitch over in his alley, where he was looking in the trash for his giant cannons that he used to beat Overtkill last time. And he's trying to get Sam and Twitch to let him go, and he can't find his cannons in the trash, which I think is so funny to me.
There's a note that he destroyed Overtkill a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
So we're in issue 23. Overtkill was killed in issue 7.
And it's been a few weeks now.
Granted, I know that a couple of those issues are not like Spawn, like issue 8 doesn't have anything to do with Spawn directly. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Time doesn't move in the
No.
Spawn universe at this point.
No. Spawn's arguing with these guys. He tries to leave. Twitch kneecaps him, shoots him with a precision shot because we learned that Twitch is one of the best shots on the Force. They call him Twitch because he never does. Is what we learn here, which I still love Twitch. Sam and Twitch. Sam, complicated and kind of a bastard. Twitch, very much not so, at least yet. But I love these characters and I love Twitch in particular.
Sam and Twitch have been my favorite characters overall so far. They do have a Fred Flintstone and Barney Rubble type of dynamic to them.
It's a very sitcom-y
fun.
kind of dynamic, yeah.
Absolutely. It's very honeymooners kind of deal. Like you can get the archetype that Todd is working with. I love Twitch.
Yeah.
I think it's so cool that he kind of has like a secret power.
Oh, and he's also a father of 7, so he slings pipe. He's got like one kid for every time he's had sex, man.
I'll say this though, if the Spawn movie ever happens, fingers crossed for Blumhouse, Twitch has already been cast. Did you know this?
Oh, really?
Yeah. So Jamie Foxx is Spawn. Jeremy Renner as Twitch.
Really?
Yeah.
As Twitch of all characters?
Seems
I could
wrong,
actually
right?
kind of see him as Sam.
I know.
Twitch.
All right, quick sidebar. Who would you cast as Twitch?
Who's that fucking kid from the Kingsman movies?
That's pretty good.
Like, he's getting older now.
I would cast Cheaty from The Good Place.
Oh, that would be great.
I love that guy. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I don't remember his name, but he's great. And also because he's got the right energy.
Yeah, he sure does. He would rock it. William Jackson Harper.
That's what it is. William Jackson Harper.
Or William Harper Jackson, one of the two.
He was my pick for Reed Richards, but alas.
I'm fine with Pedro.
It's fine. We'll see. I like the first poster.
Yeah. I'm a huge Fantastic Four fan. It doesn't take much to please me, especially in comparison to the garbage we've seen.
If you get any crumbs, you're happy.
Exactly.
It's kind of been downhill for you since Hickman left, huh?
You know, I actually really love Ryan North.
I keep forgetting that.
Ryan North and Yvonne Coelho's Fantastic Four is fantastic. It is
Yvonne
a fantastic
Coelho
Fantastic Four.
And I apologize if we're not pronouncing that correctly, but his art really leveled up.
There is one flaw that I think he's been working on, which is when he draws a side profile, Ben Grimm, his head looks like Pac-Man.
You just got to draw him the way Todd draws Spawn when he's getting held up by Twitch here with his bottom lip out.
Pouty lip, yeah.
I love pouty lip Spawn. I don't know why it's like my favorite thing.
It's such an easy expression to show in the costume. So Wanda visits with Grandma Blake, who Al visited a while back in issue, 4 or 5 or something. I think the last Overtkill story. And she's telling Wanda about how she just got to see Al and how great it was, and that Al was an angel now. And just as this is happening, the phone rings, and it's Wanda's neighbor saying, 2 men have been killed on your front lawn. You need to get home. The police said Terry killed them, which is all the setup we need for the idea that Terry has now been framed for killing these two. Did he kill the CIA guys or the mafia guys?
The CIA guys were killed by the mafia
guys and blamed. They're all blaming Terry for this.
Because, like, what is he going to do? There's literally 2 dead guys on his front lawn.
Meanwhile, both Jason Wynn and Vito Gravano are upset by this turn of events. Terry's still getting his ass beat to shit by Overtkill, but Spawn finally gets away from Sam and Twitch.
Who shot him in the knee.
Little worse for the wear. He runs through it because
Yeah.
he's a hellspawn. But he does manage to get Terry out of harm's way. He goes back up against Overtkill. There's a lot of Overtkill shooting his eye stream, whatever it's called, a bio laser stream, which makes it sound like he's pissing out of his eye.
Which is new. He didn't have that the first time, so he's been upgraded.
He's been upgraded. We do know he went through some tech shit before.
And we do see in Curse of the Spawn 23 and 24 that he's become overt war. And those issues they were written way later than this, but they that's only in Curse of the Spawn 23, which we're not going to cover. But in Curse of the Spawn 23, we find out he has a brother who like gathers up the pieces of him and puts him back together, and he ends up killing his brother, and he goes back to America.
He has a Luigi.
He does.
Oh my god.
He has a Luigi who like kind of looks like a monkey and is a mad scientist. It's a weird issue.
You know, I remember that now.
Alan McElroy, you wrote a great Spawn animated series. We can leave it at that. But
speaking of cool Overtkill shit, this panel on the bottom where he's standing over Spawn saying, "Time to pop that zit you call a head."
Hell yeah.
That's a cool panel.
Oh, and we got, Sam and Twitch in the background, and obviously Twitch's gun is doing nothing to
it's just
Overtkill.
picking off Overtkill's shoulders. Cut to Wanda's house where she's getting home to find a bunch of press and cops, and everybody's there. And they're calling Carrie a traitor, saying he fled the scene. All this crazy shit's going on.
And she's kind of having a moment because her neighbors are abandoning her.
Yeah, Jason Wynn and Vito Gravano, I think it was Jason Wynn actually got to the neighbors first and paid them off to ignore Wanda.
Yeah, or either to ignore her or to lie or to just sort of like
basically
keep up the charade that's
enforce
going on.
what their version of the story, which is that Terry killed these agents.
I do like the next half a page where she's like in silhouette and there's a lot of text, because here is where I feel like you can do the Claremontian. I'm going to lean heavy into what this character is feeling right in this moment. It would work a lot better if Todd wasn't doing it all throughout
over
this
and
issue.
Over through these stories.
Over and over and over again.
Yeah, she's lamenting the fact that she lost one government agent husband and then went and married another, and that he is probably going to be dead again soon. And we find out that he has still got a little life in him because he is now risen to his feet and decided he's going to help Spawn. He starts pushing the dumpster across the alley at Overtkill.
He's able to knock him off balance.
Yes. He knocks him off balance. And as all this is going down, Twitch takes his gun and says, "I've got an idea, sir." I like the way he's drawn this very dirty, hairy looking gun. Like, we get a lot of those long shots down the barrel of the gun.
And we get the big Clint Eastwood eyebrows going on too.
Yeah, I love it. He takes one fateful shot right into Overtkill's one human ear canal. And it sends him haywire. He goes, Youngblood, the Bedrock, Youngblood, the Bedrock.
And you can read Youngblood number 7 to figure out what happens there. Spoiler alert, he fights
Bedrock, Now we end the issue with actually a pretty decent splash page of Sam and Twitch standing over the bloodied bodies of Spawn and Terry Fitzgerald. And we finally come to the final issue of this arc, Spawn number 24. Hit us with the credits.
Issue 24, The Hunt Part 4, story and art by Todd McFarlane. Special thanks to Greg Capullo, copy editor and letters by Tom Morzkowski, color by Steve Oliff and Ollie Optics. Ollie Optics is the same. I could have just said that this is the same credits as the last one. Dedicated to Joe Sinnott.
Oh, okay. Joe Sinnott, great inker.
Is it Sinnott? Sinnott or
Sinnott? I've never actually heard anyone pronounce it.
Me neither.
But, of course, one of Jack Kirby's best inkers, longtime inker on Fantastic Four. And is the one who standardized and helped Jack Kirby standardize what the thing's actual look is with the rock plates and stuff. One of his big claims to
He
fame.
said, Jackie, what them rocks do?
Jackie, what them rocks do? Do they clank and do they clack?
So we open back in that alley. Again, Spawn issues always open 5 seconds after the last issue,
Right.
which is why these issues take, or why the story kind of takes forever. It's been maybe 3 months since Spawn has been Spawn. We've gotten 20 issues over 2 years, 24 issues over 2 years, and it's, again, been 3 months for Spawn. It's still 1992 to Spawn.
Sam and Twitch have finally come face to face with Spawn. They're about to come face to face with him in a more literal way as they try to pull off his mask. Twitch says that he might be dead. He's not finding a pulse. He is dead. He has no pulse. And so Twitch says he's going to try some CPR. They pull off the mask and they see the stitched up, wrecked up hamburger barbecue face of Al Simmons staring back at them. And they're trying to hassle Terry Fitzgerald. He's trying to get home to Wanda.
And he's also noticing that Sam is like, oh, the only other thing we've got is that the bag lady called him Al. And Terry's like, wait, Al?
Al? Yeah, he's starting to notice that this might in fact be his buddy Al Simmons, who he believes to be dead, along with most of the world. World-famous government assassin Al Simmons. So right. Sam and Twitch are calling in everybody. Someone else is like, okay, one of the other cops is like, we just got lucky. They don't know about all the shit that went down with Terry Fitzgerald, so we're going to get him first. What this is leading to is Jason Wynn also sending his goons, Vito Gravano sending his goons, everybody colliding on this alley all at once as Sam and Twitch try to take Terry Fitzgerald and Al Simmons into custody. He manages to run. They don't shoot him because they need to take him alive.
And he runs because he believes that they have Wanda and Cyan. But we know, and the editors reminds us that they're fine. It's just a bluff.
Yeah.
From 2 issues ago.
At this point. Yeah. And honestly, look, we're kind of breezing through a lot of this. It's a little bit jumbled to try and run this down because, again, so much of these pages are just repeating what previous pages and previous issues have said. It really reads like Todd wanted a little more space to tell this part of the story, but he managed to turn it into 4 issues. And it could have been 2, 3 at the very most. It could have been a 2-issue arc and been just fine.
By comparison, the Payback arc is much tighter than this. However, it is also doing a lot less narratively. It has less characters. This is, I think, one of the first times that Todd, not being a very seasoned writer, is affecting pacing where he can't juggle the multiple plot lines that he's got going on. So this ends up kind of reading like, okay, first draft, here's all the stuff that has to happen. There's no second draft. It's just all this stuff has to happen, and I don't know what to cut, so it's all going to be there. And we've talked a little bit about Orzechowski being credited as an editor on early issues, but then being credited as a copy editor. This is a book with no editor.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that, it shows. This last issue has a lot of breathing room in it. The ending of this arc is kind of like Return of the King, where it ends, and then it ends, and then it ends, and then it ends again. And so, okay.
Arguably, it just ended.
Mm-hmm. And there's this big convergence of people in the alley. Across town, Vito Gravano is learning that the other bosses are upset with him because of all the stuff that's going on with Spawn and Overtkill. Everybody converges on this alley. There's a big shootout. The bums show up. Is there a shootout? Am I getting ahead of myself?
You are getting ahead of yourself a little bit. Basically...
No, that's right. The bums show up and they start pelting Sam and Twitch with
Twitch.
garbage to get them to leave Spawn alone.
Because all that happens in the opening pages is really that like Terry keeps trying to get away and Sam and Twitch keep catching him because like Spawn is like knocked out or whatever, right? So they keep pelting them with garbage. Terry wants to run again, but then suddenly a car that's like speeding towards the alley comes, and this is a good double page splash.
There's a really cool double page splash of Spawn appearing in right in front of Terry Fitzgerald to body block the car. I will say,
Big Superman moment. It's great.
It is. It's funny to me though how much bigger than the car Spawn is. He is like massive.
It's a Mini
compared
Cooper.
To the car.
It
looks like a Mini Cooper next to. It looks like a go-kart next to him, but it is a very cool, really interesting drawing, and I love the car implosion, all the shit flying everywhere, the hubcaps, and the big scash. Very kind of almost anime-looking, manga-looking sound.
Oh, I love the lettering. It also looks very much like lettering that like Daniel Warren Johnson does now.
Exactly.
Which I know that his is probably more anime and manga influenced.
But he's versed in comics.
Spawn influenced.
Might be there, you know?
I mean, I'm sure he's read a few Warzakowskis.
I bet he's drawn some sick Spawn. I wonder if he's ever drawn Spawn. That'd be dope.
I would want Daniel Warren Johnson to do like a Spawn mini. Or just honestly, a Violator mini in hell.
Interesting. That'd be cool.
That'd be nuts.
So Spawn turns back into Spawn. All the cops show up to check the wreckage. Spawn decides that to escape, what he needs to do is teleport out. And as he teleports out, he leaves a big flaming graffiti on the wall that says, "These alleys belong to Spawn," in huge green flames.
Hell yeah. Hell, Spawn, and I cannot stress this enough. Yeah.
Correct. So here's what we get like denouement after denouement. He goes to visit Jason Wynn, hands him a file and says, "I know everything about you. If you don't leave Terry Fitzgerald alone and make sure that his life is safe and protected from now on, you're fucked."
Yeah.
Jason Wynn scans the file. No one alive knew some of the items it contains. He seems convinced, basically.
Then he goes to visit Sam, who's a mid-sandwich,
making himself a big old hoagie, a big old sub. I like in the panel where he gives him a file on like the Chief Banks. He says, "Give this file to Chief Banks and let him know that I know all his dirty secrets too. And if he doesn't want it on the news, he'll stop all this shit." I like in that panel. It almost looks like Spawn is throwing the craft singles. "Give this to Chief Banks."
I like that too because it does create also another thing for Sam. Sam has been very antagonistic in this arc, to put it lightly, and it now gives another story beat or like another story path for him. Where like, well, now he has this info on Chief Banks, right? What does that mean for Sam?
Right. And also another demented drawing of him here. Like it looks like a caricature of John Goodman in a way.
He looks like a werewolf from Excalibur shedding its skin, which is kind of what a lot of the people in Todd McFarlane drawings look like.
Yeah. Then he goes to Vito Gravano's sauna and he says, "Hey, fat man, let's chat." He has Vito Gravano's business appointments number 102 file, which according to Spawn lays out an entire year of Vito Gravano's bullshit plans.
And tells him to stay out of his alleys.
Stay away from Terry Fitzgerald, yeah. And so Spawn, it ends with Terry and Wanda catching up, just kind of confessing to each other that they're both very scared and none of it makes sense.
This arc ends the same as Grant Morrison's arc.
Yeah, it sure does. With Spawn creepily watching them from outside.
Yeah.
I have to say, I really like the coloring on the last page. The kind of washed out, very dreamy, like it really works for the mood.
I was going to say, I really like the inking on the page with Vito Gravano, where on the cape specifically. Yeah. The
That
inking's
is a
like this
cool effect.
weird, cool wash thing. I don't know. It looks really great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, hey, listen, that's been this arc.
It feels like these issues, if they didn't do the Coco Swiss and all the other like fill-ins and shit, it feels like these issues would have come pretty hot on the heels of the Violator arc, or of the original Overtkill arc. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this is issues like 8 through 10 or 12
Yeah.
or 11 or whatever.
Which is probably why a lot of it was banked and ready to go before some of the other ones, because Todd was probably working on it before and during the Coco Swiss.
Yeah. So to get into the back matter a little bit, so in the back matter of 21, that's where Todd starts talking about why 19 and 20 haven't come out. And so he says, as you can see, this issue, which you just finished reading, is number 21. You did not miss either issues 19 or 20. At this point, those two issues do not exist. They will be coming out in the summertime and will fit into the continuity between issues 18 and 21. So even though you have a book that seems like it might be out of order, your collection is still intact and no issues have been missed by anybody. The reasons for skipping those issues deal with some of the politics of our business that would bore you if I got into the details. Thanks for understanding, and rest assured, no one has either 19 or 20 because at present they do not exist. I'll put an advertisement in my book to let you know when these books are coming out. Like I said, he does get called out in a letters column later.
Yeah.
And it's like, stuff that would bore us, you got to tell us. And then he goes, fine, I'll tell you. And then he tells them, and we covered this already. The first letter in this issue, I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's really, really, really long for a letter. Anyway.
Right.
But it's to Mr. McFarlane and the rest of the Image team. And it says, I feel that my comic comrades and I can no longer contain our disappointments. For just over a year now, myself and 20 others have been collecting comics. I know this is a short period of time, and maybe we are not justified to make criticisms, but we want to all the same. We started collecting at a time when Image comics were really taking off over here in England. The first one we invested in was Spawn. The reviews, great, super, fantastic. You know the rest. We then bought most of the other miniseries, Cyberforce, Youngblood, Pit, Savage Dragon. After some time, we thought, hey, let's form some sort of fan club. We know what original idea. It's only been done thousands of times before. We all raved about the stories, the artwork, the artists, the characters most of the time, the inkers, and generally everything to do with Image. Then one day the raving stopped. Why, you ask yourselves? It was simply our continual annoyance with the black superheroes. What black superheroes? What black superheroes, I hear you say? Exactly. We're served with a sprinkling of Spawn mixed with a touch of voodoo. By the way, who the hell gave her that ridiculous name? Let's hazard a guess here.
All right.
Is it to inform the readers that she's black? No, surely not. And a chapel thrown in for good measure. And well, that's all, folks. What we're trying to say to you guys is we're starving. We've had the starter, but where's the main course? Don't get us wrong. We're not asking for a comic book full of all black superheroes. That's ridiculous.
Well, is it? But
I'm not going to then they say that's like asking for the comic book, I'm quoting here, full of all Oriental/white superheroes. We much prefer a good mix of races, but we feel that out of over 20 characters, 3 is just not good enough. Correct the statistics if we're wrong. I mean, they go on to just kind of be like, yeah, I mean,
when you look at the overall line of like Image comics and even superhero comics in the 90s, there were more black characters being created, but a lot of them were like Night Thrashers and stuff, which, not to say you can't take a character like that and make it good, but like there was the reason that Dwayne McDuffie had that like memo about like the last 5 teenage black characters also just being skateboard guys or something.
Oh, what was in his letter? It was like, he came up with a pitch while he was at Marvel.
Yeah.
That was like teenage Negro skateboard ninjas or whatever.
Basically, because that's what was being published those are the only black characters being created at Marvel at the time. So it was, of course, meant to call attention to that.
The one big exception being Bishop.
Bishop, cool, yeah, of course.
Created by Will Sportasio as well, of Image fame.
On the other hand, there's Rage.
Yeah, well.
A 13-year-old boy in the body of a giant man.
And Nick Spencer did great work with that character. So
Just got brought back as a gang leader. Brutal. In a Night Thrasher comic, in fact.
these guys have a great point, and they do lay out possible reasons that the artist can't draw black features, that inking the characters would take too long, which they say that's a joke, that's funny.
Yeah, that's not okay. The faces I'm making as you say each one of these, and then I'm hearing like the second half that's like, we have a problem with the black characters. There's not enough of them, and we want more representation. Yeah. Okay. Just like pulling my collar, sweating over here.
But then they're like, oh, black superheroes do not sell masses of comics. And they said the exception to this rule is when our hero can only change into a blonde hair, blue-eyed guy.
Yep.
Which I guess we'll get to in 80 years. That's Jim Downing, and he will replace Al at some point.
Right.
Then no one knows what sort of character to give them. You've already have a bimbo and a hired killer. That's just about covers the scope of depth for a black hero, wouldn't you say? This is a great letter.
I mean, honestly, pretty based, yeah.
They say, number 5, just not interested. Would you really tell us if this were true? Number 6, have not really considered it. And number 7, a combination of 2 or more of the above.
Wow. Gonna guess it's number 7.
Basically, I think that Todd dances around it a little bit in his response. He says, dear comrades, the lack of something present in any comic book is not because of any hatred for it, but more because of an interest in other areas instead. For instance, there hasn't been an overabundance of doctors in my book either, but that doesn't mean I don't like them. Usually as a creator of a book, you take ideas or visuals you feel that you're interested in doing and present them in a story that you feel will be of interest to yourself and others.
So it kind of is just not interested.
Yeah, that's kind of what he's saying. He's like, I mean, I gave you a Spawn. I don't know what else you want me to do.
To be fair, Todd McFarlane's comic does have a lot of black people in it who are characters, and just came off an arc. This is coming at the end of an arc that involved, 2 black characters prominently in it, along with Spawn. So, but across the line, and
But I think also at this point, Todd is such the face of Image because this book is at 24.
Yeah.
Or at this point, 21, right? No other Image book is getting close to that at this point,
Yeah.
So I think that letter writers, especially those who are fans of Image's entire output, are like,
I don't begrudge them saying it to Todd McFarlane. Yeah. I just think his response probably has to be couched in his opinion of himself.
Yeah, he's definitely, and he's also just trying to hit kind of middle of the road. I didn't mean anything by it. It's not on purpose. Like,
right.
That's what I'm doing. So it is what it is. In the back matter, Terry Fitzgerald does predict that the Rangers would win the Stanley Cup against his Vancouver Canucks.
How'd they do?
And he was right. The Rangers did win. I'm not a Rangers fan.
Congratulations to the 1994 Rangers.
I'm trying to think of any of the other letters that are particularly interesting. I don't think they really are. Some of the ads are really interesting. For instance, we do get the storyboards and like rough sketches for the Wildcats animated show.
Oh, that's cool.
That are super cool.
Oh,
like that's their ship, the Daemonite and stuff.
That's dope.
So that's really, really cool. Folks, if you have the opportunity to track down any of the single issues, like you're just like trolling through quarter bins and have a few extra bucks, like, I don't know, buy some of these things. Like the old Image books had crazy stuff in the back. A lot of people at this point also really had read Batman Spawn, and they really liked it. We got people asking for Spawn Spider-Man, and then somebody called Todd out for fucking up the art in Batman Spawn, where sometimes Batman has like the wrong gauntlets, or the number of spikes on his arm is different. And same for Spawn, and Todd just cops to it, and he's like, that's why I have a living suit on Spawn, so I can never be wrong. And also, I make a lot of mistakes.
I mean, he's an artist. He doesn't have to not. Like, perfection is the goal, I guess, but isn't that why a lot of, artists die early? Because they're just too concerned with perfection? Maybe that means that if Todd is out there drawing 5 Spike Batman gauntlets or whatever, we'll get him to the ripe old age of 173.
There is a really funny thing in here about him mentioning whether or not he'll do 400 issues of Spawn.
Really? We'll find
where
out.
he's like, will I do 400 issues of Spawn? I don't know. Does that mean Rob Liefeld will never come back to Youngblood? I don't know. Dear listener, will there be 400 issues of Spawn? Almost definitely. Will Rob Liefeld ever do Youngblood again?
He'll probably announce it.
Probably not. But, never say never.
He'll probably announce it at least 3 more times.
I mean, yeah, I'm sure he will. Or just a reprint of something with like a variant cover.
So there we have it. Another arc of Spawn, 4 issues. Frankly, not the best, not the worst, but pretty middle of the road, especially coming off of, Grant Morrison's run, little arc there, and even Spawn Batman at least had some novelty value.
I think that I do like this more than Spawn Batman.
Fair.
I think the art is worse, but I think
I like the writing better, even though there's a lot more of it.
I don't know. In stops and starts, I kind of like it.
I like it better than Frank Miller's like, I'm the Batman. I'm the fucking Batman, you little prick. Like, I don't like that. I just don't.
I hear you. I'm happy to see Sam and Twitch again. I'm happy to see Terry Fitzgerald doing something.
Yep.
Hell, in a weird way, I'm even happy to see Jason Wynn and Tony Twist hanging out doing stuff.
Yeah. And we did get a little more
Overtkill back.
Yeah. We did get a little more Terry Fitzgerald lore as well, where we learned he was a linguist, a cunning linguist.
Yeah. To understand that the word Al, apparently. Yeah. The way that is posed is very weird.
Once again. So
hey, I guess Terry Fitzgerald could be his bodyguard.
He could.
It's a joke for Paul Simon fans.
That's right. Okay.
Final thoughts?
That was one of the Spawn stories of all time.
I was just telling Vanessa that I really like whenever you say that, yes, that was one of history's movies or history's comics. I'm like, yeah, 100%. I think it's fine. I think in a weird way, I think this does move the chains, right? Vito knows some stuff. Like Terry knows some stuff. Jason Wynn knows some stuff. Wanda still knows nothing. And we're building to something. I will say one last thing that is brought up in the letters columns a few times is that I think readers are also starting to get a little tired, where they're like, what's going to happen? Like, give me some answers. I want some answers. Todd always deflects that with, well, if I give it all to you right now, why would you keep reading it if you didn't like the answer?
Yeah.
So maybe I want, like, the first time he's kind of like, oh, I want you to read issue 53 and be like, oh, sick. Like, it's cool that I've been on this journey with this character. He does also say that his vision of Spawn is going to come more into focus by issue 40.
Yeah, great.
So
another 2 years down the road.
So we're going to hold him to that, and we're going to find that out. Well, and the other thing is we're going to be covering quite a few miniseries along the way.
That's the other thing that I think is maybe the most fascinating part about this arc, is that it gives you a little more insight into the nuts and bolts of like how Todd McFarlane is making this work, because it does feel like these issues were meant to come out earlier, and then like all the Cocoa Swiss, all that shit could have happened later. So, there is that aspect of it, but I agree with you. I think it does feel like at least another chapter in the story more than some of the other, it's kind of moving the pieces together on the board. Sam and Twitch and Spawn finally come together. So it
actually makes the Overtkill arc matter a little bit more.
It does add a little more weight to it. Sure.
Kinda, like you get to see him again. So now you're like, Oh, this is the first guy we've gotten to see again. This
Yeah.
must be important, you know.
Yeah. So it's not a totally indispensable arc, but it's also not something that I would leave on the cutting room floor if you're going through your Spawn read through for sure.
Yeah, I think the good thing about the main Spawn like issues, with the exception of the chapel stuff, because we'll eventually get to the retcon of that.
Right.
But for the most part, like all this stuff is important, and the chapel stuff even works, even though it was retconned, because they did it as like, Al didn't really know. It's still early enough.
Right.
That arc happens early enough that if it's like a feint or just sort of like a fake out, you're sort of like, oh, okay, yeah, he didn't know, and he didn't know how his powers worked, and he was getting these weird visions, and maybe they were lies, and so you can kind of no prize it in your own head.
Yeah.
This arc,
he's dealing with the devil. Could have lied to him.
Right, exactly. You know? This arc, I do just think pulls out, and it happens kind of with the Houdini arc too. It's like when poor writers take on something that's a little outside their depth, it just doesn't really work well. I think that the Houdini arc is worse than Batman Spawn, because even though I don't like, or sorry, Spawn Batman, even though I don't like Frank Miller's work there that much, it's fine. It's like effective enough. I don't love his voice, but he gets us through it in a way.
Yeah.
And that Orzechowski Houdini arc is rough.
It's a slog.
And similarly, as much as there's stuff here that I really, really like, this is also kind of a slog. So
yeah, yes, indeed.
I'm excited to get into Violator next. The Violator mini is Alan Moore with art by Bart Sears, so we're not getting any Todd, I guess, except for like kind of editorial interference. 3 issues of Violator. I'm happy to have Violator back. I kind of miss him.
Yeah.
At this point, he adds an element to the book that I think we honed in on pretty early, and it's been away, and it'll give more context to this arc, and maybe it'll make us like it better too. So
maybe so.
We'll see.
Maybe so. We'll see.
George, where can people find you if you want them to find you?
Well, every social media that I'm on, you can find me at Crypt Trash. And that's usually Blue Sky, Instagram. You can also read my writing every rootin' tootin' day over at newsarama.com, whose opinions are not reflected in this podcast, only my personal ones. And you can listen to my band Hypersleep. We're on Spotify and Bandcamp and all that shit. And on YouTube, you can also see my personal music, which is Witch Crisis.
I really wish that I had come up with the name Witch Crisis.
Isn't it good?
So good. For those who don't know, also, George did our theme music.
That's right.
And also sings on it.
So what about you, Piers?
I don't have a lot of comics writing coming out currently, but especially by the time this comes out, that might change. But you can generally find me at Newsarama or Popverse. You can find me on Twitter and the internet in general at PE Lightning. You can find me on all the Spawn subreddits at PE Lightning as well. That's Spawniverse and r/Spawn are the 2 that I frequent the most. But I'll usually be posting about Spawnography, so you know who I am. And my band is called Power Trash. We will have something coming out this year, so you can find us on Spotify, also Bandcamp.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, this has been another episode of Spawnography. Please rate, review, subscribe, share with other Spawn fans, share with people you think might enjoy Spawn. I don't know, maybe share with your partner who hates Spawn to really solidify it, or to prove that there's something academic about Spawn, because I think we try to be academic on some small.
Share it with your wife, your grandma, your girlfriend, your aunt, your uncle, your cousins,
your undead
preacher,
husband.
your nephew. All right, well, you know what that means, Pierce. For Todd so loved the world,
he gave his only begotten Spawn. Thanks, y'all.
That's it.
Bye.
See you next time. Spawniverse!